Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at these charts then, shall we? Just checking Coinbase. I'm hoping to get an entry on this one today, to be honest with you, but may not be so lucky. So let's get started on Bitcoin, and it's starting on the weekly. So no different to as it was yesterday. And actually, Bitcoin is in the red actually today, still. But I don't know if it'll last that way. So the candle body so far exists above this horizontal area of significance. Based on the weekly, that is more or less the candle body tops of the previous cycle's all-time high. And the wick actually kissed on the cheek very gently this 20 weekly, which is a really good place for it to, if you're going to find a decent bounce pattern, maybe even a bottom, but we'll just call it a bounce for now. That's where you'd like to see it. Because if you're going to get a reaction on anywhere that's going to remain bullish, it's going to be either a Bollinger Band Center, which is a 20 moving average, or a 21 exponential, as we saw on this one over here. So we came up to make the all-time high. We actually bounced significantly from the 21 exponential, which at this point was above the 20 simple. Now we've made that cross. That's not important. It's the fact that there's a cross. So don't read too much into that. And so the first major opportunity for any long-term investment or huge, I suppose, it's the longer, higher-term time frames really that you'll be looking to trade on this one. Enter into here, sit back, watch and wait. It is here. If you think about the Bollinger Band strategy itself, it's pretty simple. You know, if you remain above the band, you're more likely to stay above the band. You go down below the band, you're more likely to stay below the band. And whichever portion you're in, you're 65% more likely to stay in that portion of the band. It's pretty simple stuff. It's one of the most important indicators you can use. And if you're learning to trade, it's probably the first one to get your head around, really. So there you have it. Weekly 20 moving average been tagged and so far holding. So let's have a little look at shorter term time frames, because if we're looking for a bounce or a continuation of a bounce, we want to check momentum, and we do have bullish divergence. It still is intact. We do have bullish divergence on the 4 hourly, and look, we're below the Bollinger Band in this instance, and so if you really want to get continuation, you've got to get above there, and at the moment that's 65,880 and descending. So with every 4 hourly closure, it's going to get lower and lower and lower. So we do need to get above there fast. We've got death crosses on simples and exponentials, which is usually a sign of continuation anyway, but that doesn't mean you can't move up into it to see it as a retest. So this is for anyone who wants to short, or this is for bears. I'm not suggesting you short Bitcoin, that's crazy. But if you were to, then you'd be looking for a retest. Similar to how we saw a retest of it here. This is a 50 exponential that got retested, or you could even call it the 50 simple. And it got rejected from it. So like you see in a bull market where you have the golden cross retests, which you look to long or buy the dips on, you sell the rips on death cross retests, or you expect rejection at least anyway. So those rejections come in at these areas: 50 simple, 66,600, all the sixes basically, 200 exponential, 67,300, and 200 simple, 68,250 more or less. So look, these are all areas that we could see today or tomorrow. These are all realistic areas to see a move on it. And if you break above it, then it very likely get continuation back up to the top of this range, 71,000. So let's have a look at the daily to see if there's anything going on this daily. Well, it's way too early to get divergences. As far as momentum is concerned, still wants to go down. Same with money flow, same with MACD. So all momentum is still to the down on this one, unfortunately, and you can't flip bullish until you reclaim 68,250, which is more or less where that 200 simple moving average is on the 4 hourly. So a lot of stuff going on around this middle, I don't know why I say it like that, this middle area. The middle area, 68,250. So we've got a long way to go really before breaking particularly bullish on this one. But if we start the video, end the video where we started, recognizing that actually the higher term timeframes are the most bullish. The higher term timeframes haven't broken down. The higher term timeframes have found a major support, and the last time we saw something similar to this was over here, where you got catapulted back up to kind of the top of the range really. And you might be looking at that now. You might be looking at that. You know, we may be seeing that. Now, what this does for altcoins, you know, is my best guess is that altcoins are just going to follow, and they should follow Ethereum. And look what Ethereum's doing. It's exactly the same thing. 20 moving average on the weekly, gentle kiss on the cheek there. So Bitcoin and Ethereum doing the same thing. There's no difference to either of them. So let's check the 4 hourly for Ethereum. What's going on here? Slightly more bullish, I have to say. There's only fresh death cross took place and it's not diverging much. And the last closure we saw 4 hours ago was above it. We're coming down a little bit below it now, but momentum is turning up on this one quite hard, actually. So, reflecting on this, just Ethereum looks better than Bitcoin. It does actually look better than Bitcoin on the shorter term timeframes. It's identical on the higher term timeframes. So maybe that's evidence that we see a big altcoin bounce. I'm not saying reversal, but a big altcoin bounce. We were doing the Patreon live stream tonight, and the dump hadn't. We weren't sure if it had finished at that point. Seems to have settled a little now, and so a lot of the coins we were looking at yesterday, for the most part, there was a couple of them which actually did stand out, but most of them didn't stand out at all. They were just wrecked, continuing to get wrecked. Some of them were bouncing from areas that we could see on charts, but really I was very skeptical about calling any significant low or reversal on them. Lots of them had 4-hourly bullish divergence though, which would lead into a bounce that could be a significant bounce today if Ethereum continues like this, and same with Bitcoin. If it continues this way, then yeah, altcoins probably do see a decent bounce, but most of those charts are heavily downtrending, so those bounces are likely to get faded. They're not reversal bounces, they're just probably big bounces. But yeah, the long story short was from my perspective is that any altcoin that you want, and if you want it and you want to build a portfolio in it, you should think about buying it based on Bitcoin's movements. So Bitcoin being the major indicator, and thinking about altcoins really as like derivatives of Bitcoin at this point now, because their charts mostly aren't respecting supports. Supports are just getting smashed straight through. There's no demand for these altcoins. The fun has been had. They have been rallying, or at least from their lows at least, since October last year. And it's been pretty decent. A lot of these coins have done 5, 10x or even more than that. But now a lot of those coins are giving it all back, which is something I've been reiterating, at least on this channel, but certainly on the Patreon, over and over and over again, saying don't get used to high prices for altcoins. Never FOMO into them, certainly not. And if you didn't buy them way back, October last year, where the bottoms were, then you should really think about exiting with every major pump, because I don't see it as parabolic season. Now that we've come down for most altcoins at least 60, 70, some even towards 80% now from their peaks, and Bitcoin coming down to these areas that are significant on its own chart, it is reasonable to think about building a portfolio from these levels, dollar cost averaging, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. Did some more yesterday, and I'll be doing more if we come down to these 20 weeklies on Bitcoin and Ethereum, for instance. I'll do more. But it's not the altcoin itself that I'll be saying, this is the major support for the hibbidi-boo-blah coin. It'll be more like, okay, well, educated guess based on Bitcoin is that the market might be scraping a low out here, so maybe the hibbity hoopla coin, or whatever it is that I'm interested in, that I want to own for, the next 12 months or so, should also be thinking about bottoming just through association with Bitcoin. That's the best way to really look at building a portfolio in altcoins at this moment in time, because most altcoins do not look attractive at all. And if you are a trader, and you're looking to trade them, I'd probably say don't bother, because they're not charts that are offering. They can offer big moves up, but they're not stable enough to for me to say that this is a low based on its own chart. If Bitcoin comes down a few more percent, those altcoins are just going to keep going down, because there's not much support for some of these altcoins, if any, at this exact level. So this is why they're getting hurt so badly. Bitcoin can come down in small increments only to find another major support, whereas a lot of these altcoins have lost their major supports now, and so they're in free fall. So every little hiccup that Bitcoin does, altcoins just literally they just disintegrate, which is what we've been seeing, which is good for the long run if you want to buy into them from lower prices, which is why I keep saying dollar cost averaging is a perfectly appropriate strategy to employ at this point now. But to expect a sharp turnaround and a reversal from this area is a bit naive. Bitcoin is still leading the market. So let's have a think about the dominance chart, for instance. So the dominance chart had a sharp projection yesterday, daily coming down to major supports, and so we might be seeing this continuation now towards this area, this 55% dominance. It's only a small move, but that's in favour of altcoins. Altcoins should continue to outperform Bitcoin maybe throughout the rest of the day, maybe into tomorrow, perhaps maybe for the next few days. We'll see. But this is a major bullish chart on all time frames. So let's have a look at the total 2 to see what that looks like. So the total 2 is coming down quite close to an area that I would be interested in thinking a bottom might form for altcoins. But that doesn't mean that we can't come down further. I would expect us to come down further. That's a 8% move more or less from where we are right now. Hidden bullish divergence on this chart, a few drivers at this point now on the daily, so that's encouraging, moving down towards either this 200 simple and exponential or this horizontal area. And so, you know, I keep reiterating, I keep saying, I made a video about this specifically, about buying into altcoins in increments, building a portfolio throughout this period in the market. It might be over at the end of the month, it might take until August, but you know, we're going to be filling out this area here for the total 2, which is accumulation area in my opinion, before we break out at some point later on this year into next year. So you'll be kicking yourself in my opinion if you didn't accumulate altcoins while we're in this area. Because it might take a bit of time, might take a week, might take a couple of months, but once this area has been fleshed out a little bit and we actually finally break out from it, this is where altcoins really get exciting, and you'll be wishing you did buy in this area. But that doesn't mean I'm saying today is the low. It might be the low. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be. We don't know. This is the dollar cost average strategy. It makes you accept that you don't know the low, you don't know the high. What you're looking to do is get in and build a portfolio at what you believe to be a realistic area for lows to be formed, and for the risk to reward to be something that's I suppose attractive. You know, what's 30% further down for the altcoin that you bought compared to a few 100% to the upside? That's good risk to reward. That's what we, you know, that's why we're here. But it doesn't mean we know where the low is going to be. Yeah, it could be down here, and if we lose this area, it gets really bad. But at the moment, we're in the middle of what I consider to be the accumulation zone. So that's the middle. So it does warrant at least one like bid, at least for some of these altcoins that you want. But I am absolutely not saying that it is the low. But looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum potentially bouncing from this area, there is some evidence in my opinion to suggest that this is the low. It's a bold statement to make, but I've said it. But if we just reflect back on the total 2, we don't have the same kind of conviction since we lost the area and wicked down. So the total 2 is slightly more bearish, to be honest, which is why, yes, Bitcoin may bounce, Ethereum may bounce, altcoins may stay static, which means that they might move up a little bit, and then when it's time to come down, they give it all back. So don't assume that your altcoin will outperform Bitcoin, but just because Bitcoin's found its low, if it has at all. It probably hasn't. But I bought on that dip yesterday, and I will continue to buy at this point now with every major increment down, whether it's 10% or more, so long as we're holding above these areas, 61,400. And there is one last gap below there, if we had to call it, which is the upper 50s, so 57,700. That is it. If we lose this area, I might even say that we've found a top for the market, but for the moment, I don't believe that's the case. We're still bullish on Bitcoin because the chart permits that kind of mindset. You know, it is, and will be continuously bullish while being above these major supports with this particular trend. Nothing more than an opportunity to take advantage of. And I believe that the trend in the entire crypto market will follow, as it always has, hence the video I made last week about what my projections are at this moment in time. This is probably the final consolidation before the real party begins, and so it would be a shame to miss out, really. And I've been talking to the parents in the queue about it as well, the ones who are desperate to get into crypto, and I've said, look, you've missed all your chances, you know, when I told you to buy at these lows, you didn't buy. Now you want to buy because you see that it's gone up, but actually you're effectively buying a top. Now I've been saying to a few of them, I said, look, if you are going to bite the bullet and get your toes wet, I suppose now is as good a time as any to think about buying into it, really, for what could be the last major run before the bubble pops in about a year or so from now. Right, I'll leave it with you there. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.